My wife left me for a few weeks and confessed that she was cheating because she was bored. Now she wants to come back to me. It's a pretty confusing situation. I have a little more explanation. My wife is 39 years old, and I am 40. We have been married for 17 years. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 daughters, 15, 13, and 11 years old. We fell in love back in high school and have been together for about 23 years. I know almost nothing. This is all the information I have. 3 days ago, my wife came home from work. She had to work on the US Independence Day. All excited and emotional, hastily packed an overnight bag and left. I only found out because our eldest daughter was home and saw it. She tried to talk to her mother but was just crying, depressed, and didn't say a word. The daughter said her mother was in a panic. My wife doesn't respond to our messages or calls. I contacted her parents, and they finally responded that she was okay and asked us to be patient and understanding. That's all. I tried to contact her sister, brother, and one of her close work friends. The brother said he knew nothing, and the work friend said my wife was at work in the morning but disappeared by noon 3 days ago. That's all she knows. And now it's been 3 days with no contact with my wife. Even the children, no one tells us anything. And here I am with 3 daughters trying to cope without her. The children keep asking what happened to mom. And I can only say that she is at grandma and grandpa's and we must be patient and understanding. I have a huge desire to just quickly gather the children and go there without warning. It's only a 3-hour drive. And sitting here in the unknown is simply unbearable. The children think we had a big fight and are getting divorced. But that's far from the truth. We never fight, and the children know that. I don't know what's going on, but can anyone give a logical explanation as to why she would do this to her family? I suggest you pause this video right now and answer the author's questions. Why do you think the wife did this to him? Now let's move on to the update. First update. Everyone was right. It was an affair on the side. There's not much to write about. Last night was a long night. I didn't sleep. Sorry for the short update. I don't think I'll spend much time at the computer today, but yesterday I read all the comments and continued reading until late at night. I'll try to answer later. I'll just say what I know. My father-in-law didn't call me yesterday evening, so I ended up contacting the police and they did a check, as many of you suggested. This caused a storm of problems that I won't go into, but it turned out that my wife was really cheating on me for at least 2 years, and more likely longer. Everyone was right. Another man, as it turned out, had a heart attack on Tuesday and died that same night. My mother-in-law and probably my wife's friends knew about this and have been covering for her. There is still no contact with my wife, neither from me nor from my daughter. I'm trying to hide this from the children, but honestly, I have no idea what to do next. That's all I know, and it's enough to break me. Thank you all for your help and advice. I don't know how to survive this news, but that's all. If you pray, please pray for me and my family. Second update. Depression and anger. I've read many similar stories to mine when I found the time, more often at night when the daytime chaos ended, but my brain takes over, and I fall into depression, then into anger, and sometimes it all comes at once. Sleep is almost impossible, and during the day, I walk around like a zombie. Initially, I thought my wife had a 2-year affair, but now it seems it lasted much longer. The man she was cheating with was known to her for a long time. He tragically died of a heart attack, which triggered the revelations. I'm still gathering information with the help of my eldest daughter, and there are many things I'm not ready to discuss yet. Initially, I didn't plan to continue writing posts about my situation, but many people offered help and advice that really helped me normalize my psyche. It's painful to realize that so many people are experiencing or have experienced such pain. I sincerely feel sorry for everyone going through this. I met with 2 different lawyers yesterday and today to discuss options, and also contacted several specialists regarding psychotherapy. But in my area, there are very long waiting lists. I'm trying to follow many of the tips I received. Avoid alcohol, though I don't drink and never have, take care of myself and not let myself go, exercise, and so on. I would say that for my age, I'm in good shape, but now it's very difficult to find the energy for workouts. I know many of you will want to know the details, who, what, when, why, and so on. But please understand, I'm not ready to go into details yet. Every day it seems like a new bomb explodes. And right now, I'm just looking for advice on at least one question. How do I start sleeping? Well, actually, that's the essence of my post. My wife was everything to me, my best friend since school days, the mother of my 3 wonderful daughters. We had our jokes, secret handshakes, and now it's all gone, just disappeared. I remember all our years together, every significant moment, every laugh, and now it all plunges me into deep depression. It's paralyzing, as if it meant nothing to her. And now, my future will be without her. And then, of course, the thoughts come, how could you? And I drown in anger, screaming into the pillow and hitting the mattress until my hands hurt, and so on in a circle. It's just terrible. I only fall asleep from complete exhaustion, but then suddenly wake up, and the mental anguish starts all over again. All the energy I have goes into taking care of my daughters, who are now trying to take care of me as if they are the parents. It's unfair to them. How did you sleep after learning about the infidelity? How did you cope with the silence and emptiness at night, being alone with your thoughts? I decided that if I don't count taking care of the children, sleep should be my number one priority in this situation. But I just can't. So I hope you can help. Third update. An unexpected visit from my wife's parents. So it's been just over a week since my day X, and during this time I learned that my wife's affair lasted more than 4 years. I still don't have the exact chronological order of events. It's very clear that at first it started as an emotional connection, and then it grew into a physical one. I'm curious how the pandemic and lockdowns might have influenced this, but I may never get the answers to these questions. In any case, yesterday my father-in-law and mother-in-law unexpectedly came to visit, supposedly to see the grandchildren. My wife has been living with them since the beginning of this nightmare. Of course, this is complete nonsense because they only spent 15 minutes with our 3 daughters, after which they asked to speak with me alone. The conversation was long, as you can imagine, but I don't want to retell it in detail in this post. In short, my wife wants to come home but is afraid of the reaction to her actions and is not ready to face what she has done. Her parents also actively tried to find out if I am planning to divorce and spent a lot of time trying to convince me to forgive my wife and try to restore the marriage. It was obvious that they were very ashamed and embarrassed by her actions, but it was also obvious that they wanted her to leave their house as soon as possible. The conversation was very civilized, and I admit, I lied and told them that I was not sure about my plans, although in reality I am firmly determined to divorce. But I think if I say that now, I will never hear the truth from my wife, and I want her to sit in front of me and tell me everything. If possible, 0.17 years of marriage, relationships since the school bench, 3 children, countless memories, and all that we have experienced together. I want her to look me in the eyes and explain everything. I also want my children to know that I gave her a chance to explain, gave her the opportunity to apologize, and to resolve this together as mature adults. I continue to try to choose the path that will be the best example for my children. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Legally, I cannot forbid my wife from returning home. My lawyer made that very clear. So if she wants to return, I won't be able to stop her, although right now I absolutely don't want that. We, with the daughters, have started to get used to the new routine, so I set a condition that I thought would be difficult to fulfill in the near future. I said she could come home only if she sat down next to me, looked me in the eyes, and told me everything about her affair from the beginning to the end, answered my questions without evasion and lying, and then she would have to sit with our daughters, apologize to them in person, and answer their questions. It seemed to me that this is fair since they already know about the situation. Let me repeat, she can return home at any moment and is not obligated to fulfill my conditions. But if she is afraid to meet with us, maybe I can use this to my advantage. It's not right. I'm not trying to be a cunning deceiver. I just really don't want to start cohabitation now if there is a possibility to postpone it. In our state, there is a mandatory 90-day waiting period before divorce, so I have time. Her return home is inevitable. We both have to go back to work, and life will continue despite all this chaos. I just want to extend this period to plan everything and normalize my mental and emotional state, at least somehow. My wife writes to the daughters, claims that she doesn't want a divorce, constantly apologizes to them. The daughters showed me her message, daily asks about me, and it seems the realization of what she has done is finally catching up with her, especially in the last couple of days. How do I deal with this? Is my demand stupid? It seems that her return home will happen sooner than I expected. I feel quite confident in connection with the fact that I decided to move forward. I knew that sooner or later this would happen. I just want to make the best decision for my daughters and then for myself. Fourth update. My wife finally came home. I demanded a divorce. This may seem boring. Sorry for the length of the post. I just need to get it off my chest. Horrible weekend yesterday. My wife came home. This whole week was a kind of preparation for this. Earlier, when she walked in the door, I always greeted her with hugs and a kiss, but this time there was just a terrible awkward tension between us. She came up to me and tried to hug me before saying anything, but I turned away as if nothing had happened. After she settled in, I naturally asked her to tell me everything. She repeated that she was not ready. We talked on the phone earlier this week, and she said the same thing. I insisted that the only condition for her return home was to explain why she had been absent for almost 3 weeks if she really loves her family, but she just repeated that she was not ready to do that. It took a huge effort for me not to shout at her, but I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm down, and still, I lost it after the first of many long pauses. I just blurted out that she had been cheating on me for more than 4 years, with this colleague of hers planning to leave for him, abandon her whole family, and now walks in the door without fulfilling the only condition I set, and that I want a divorce. And then the strange part began. Her body language and facial expressions showed that she clearly did not expect that I knew so much about her affair. She looked at me with wide eyes, then just stood in the kitchen, looking at the floor in silence, absolutely motionless. I expected anything but this. Maybe an emotional outburst, maybe a tearful confession, maybe screams and accusations against me for her infidelity, maybe a serious tone in the spirit of, let's sit down and discuss everything. But no, none of that was there. Honestly, we stood in the kitchen for about 5 minutes in absolute silence. It was the strangest moment I have ever experienced. She clearly didn't know what to say, and neither did I. I read all your advice on my situation, even made notes, sat in front of the mirror, and prepared myself for any possible scenario that this confrontation could present, but not for such a thing. So at that moment, I decided to tell her what I knew about her affair. Maybe it was stupid. I began to lay out everything I had learned, adding my assumptions about some things: how she met her lover, the involvement of her sister, what happened during COVID, and so on. She just kept looking at the floor as I spoke. The more I talked, the angrier I became because she said nothing and did nothing, but I tried my best not to raise my voice or become rude. She didn't answer, didn't move from her spot, just stood there with her head down, no tears, no apologies, no screams, no explanations, nothing. It caused pain, maybe even more than on day X. I stood and looked at her, unable to move from the spot, and then it got even worse, of course. Our daughters were eavesdropping on the whole conversation. I feel incredibly stupid. I devoted so much energy to taking care of them and their needs over the past few weeks, but then I got angry and didn't think at all about where they were when I confronted my wife. Our eldest daughter came downstairs and started. The text seems to be cut off here. My wife quickly ran upstairs and locked herself in the bedroom. I heard my wife crying almost all night until I fell asleep. Only our youngest daughter tried to talk to her. The others avoided her. If I gather the courage, I will offer her to live with her sister before we finally get divorced. Of course, it's still her home, but it will be unbearable for all of us if we have to coexist with her. I was wrong about my wife, and you all were right. I was wrong about all our years together, all the memories, all the significant moments. I was convinced that she would fall to her knees and beg for forgiveness. I was so sure that she would repent for everything that happened in the last 4 years and tell the whole truth to ease her guilt. This woman once deliberately returned to the farmer's market when she realized she was given extra $10 in change, but we are not worth that to her. I'm not worth that to her. Or maybe I never was. What now? Today at home was incredibly uncomfortable. We, with the daughters, are trying to continue living as we have done for the past 2 weeks. But obviously, this is no longer possible. I just want to fast forward all this. Go through the divorce, through the awkward conversations, through the inevitable disputes and conflicts, through all this drama. Those who have been forced to coexist with an unfaithful spouse, how did you cope? Especially with the children. I understand that this is just the beginning, and I continue to study stories where people write that it will get better. But for now, I am so far from that. There is not a single moment when I wouldn't want to scream or burst into tears. I am doing my best to maintain a stable state for the sake of the daughters, but I am not sure that I can endure this for 3 months in a row. School for the children will start much earlier than all this will end. It seems that this is now my life. Fifth update. Moment of weakness. I broke down. I am in a terrible state and have been since my wife came home and I learned about her infidelity. I tried as best I could to pretend for the sake of the daughters, tried to say the right things, think the right thoughts. But tonight I have to admit the truth. As many of you write, it comes in waves. But today it hit me particularly hard, and I lost self-control. The divorce application has been filed, but my wife has not yet hired a lawyer. I am trying to be as patient and careful as possible on this issue, as I hope for a divorce without disputes that we can resolve ourselves. But after tonight, I am not sure. We have been living together for several weeks. On Fridays, my wife leaves to stay with her sister and returns home on Sunday evening, as her work is not far from our house, and her sister's house is about an hour's drive without traffic. For the past couple of weeks, we have developed this routine of avoiding each other. I and the daughters try to live our normal lives, and my wife mostly stays by herself. Evenings are random interactions with everyone except the eldest daughter. She doesn't talk to her mother due to several major quarrels recently. I followed many of your tips as well as the recommendations I read, and made huge efforts to maintain self-control in communicating with my wife. Despite the fact that it takes all my strength and will, I was brief and indifferent in conversation with her, but always remained polite and respectful. Until tonight, the last couple of Fridays, she came home from work, gathered some things, and left for her sister's for the weekend, even before my return from work. But not today. Tonight she was waiting for me in the kitchen when I came home. I tried to just walk past, but she gently took my hand and asked if I was really going to treat her like this, just because she wasn't ready to talk to me about her infidelity. By the way, this is the first time she has even mentioned the infidelity since all this came to light almost a month ago. I tried to just stay silent and walk away, but the daughters weren't home and the anger boiled up inside me. I poured out everything, every grievance, every wound, anger, suffering, despair, everything that had accumulated. I can't even say how long I talked. I lost track of time. I really raised my voice, becoming more and more emotional and loud. I just broke down and told her how broken I am, and about the agony I experience every day. All that I held back, all that tormented me. I could write 4,000 words if I tried to retell everything I said. As soon as I started to calm down, it was impossible to stop. Of course, I cried. The emotions welled up in me again. After that, I was terribly angry with myself. Damn it. She got to me, I let her do it. I knew this would happen. I knew it. It's been building up for so long. And yes, I can release it somehow, but there is a limit to everything. However, here's what happened for the first time. My wife also broke down and showed emotions. To my surprise, she began to cry uncontrollably. I hate to admit it, but it gave me some satisfaction to see her suffer as much as I do. I would like to not care, but I felt a kind of joy that she finally broke down, as if there was at least a drop of sympathy in her. Also, during my breakdown, she repeated apologies, sobbing as unattractively as possible. And all she said was, "I'm so sorry." But in the end, I left the kitchen before she could recover and say anything else, and asked her to leave me alone. She stayed in the kitchen for a while longer, and then left again for her sister's house. The daughters returned home about half an hour later and realized that something had happened. It was difficult to hide it, but I wasn't ready to talk about it, and I don't think they need to know. The truth is, the two younger girls are starting to feel better, and I don't want to interfere with their progress. And telling the eldest would only add fuel to the fire, which I also don't want. I hate all this. Just hate it. I needed to keep myself in check, just brush it off and walk past. I don't know, looking back, it seems she was just trying to start a conversation about her affair but didn't know how to do it. And obviously, she couldn't get very far because I exploded. I start to worry about her. I know many of you will criticize me for this, but I don't want anything to happen to her. She has been isolated, left alone with her thoughts. Almost everyone has turned away from her. You can say she deserves it, and it's true, but she is still a person and the mother of my children. What a setback. I am really disappointed in myself. Sorry for another long confession. I called my brother and vented to him too. Damn. I will try to start all over again on Monday. I'm only human, and honestly, I felt better when I poured it all out to her. But now, of course, a wave of guilt has come over me. Should I write her a message or just leave it as it is? My head is a complete mess. But thanks for listening. Thanks for the support that I so need. We all started attending psychotherapy, and that's something, but all this is incredibly difficult, just to the point of impossibility. Sixth update. It was a terrible week. I know many of you have tried to support me, and I really appreciate your care, but most of us were right, things are not going well. I wanted to take a break, to distract myself, but this week knocked me out even more. It was just terrible. My wife has been literally not giving me a moment's peace all week. Overly nice, endlessly apologizing for her infidelity, crying, and literally smothering me with her attention. She knocked on my door at night, trying to talk. I ignored her when I could, but sometimes I talked if I was in the mood. Finally, on Wednesday evening, I broke down and told her to leave me alone. And then last night, it happened. It has been just over a month since my wife came home after her infidelity was revealed. And now we are entering into this uncomfortable routine of cohabitation. Last night, after the girls went to bed, she came to my room and asked to talk alone. This time, it was somehow different than before. Throughout the week, I resisted at first, but eventually we went into the garage and sat in my car so as not to conflict in front of the children. Sorry, but the story will be long. She told me everything. According to her, we sat there for almost 3 hours. I don't know how much I can share. I didn't sleep all night, couldn't sleep, listening to her cry for hours. I also cried. Then the wild anger would come over me, and I had to restrain myself from starting to shout at her. Then again the tears, again the anger, and so on in a circle. Sorry if I don't answer anyone's questions right away. I need to vent and try to sleep. It doesn't help. The fact that my wife constantly apologizes and begs for another chance. All this evening, I had to leave for a few hours just to escape from her. Being near her is incredibly painful. So, her sister introduced her to her lover before COVID, about 5 years ago, according to her, without any romantic intentions. He was a high-ranking person at the company where she wanted to work and where she now works. He helped her get the job. Her desire to change jobs was not related to the affair, but as you understand, after she got the job, she had an additional incentive. After she got the job, he began to flirt with her. It all started with messages, then photos. Then, long before COVID, it turned into physical relations. She admitted to her sister and wanted to tell me then, but she decided to bury the secret and say nothing. The wife said that shortly after the start of the affair, she stopped communicating with her lover. But when the restrictions and lockdowns were lifted, he contacted her again, and she resumed conversations with him, until the physical side of their relationship started again after returning to work. She claims that she ended the affair several times due to guilt, but returned to him again. So, in essence, it never really ended. She really told much. She had a 5-year affair. She read it all out and answered questions along the way. She lied about weekends with the girls, lied about business trips, lied about traffic jams, problems with parents, shopping, and so on. As I suspected, the list was huge. So much lying, and I trusted every word she said without a doubt. All this was a cover to spend time with him. Listen, this made me feel even worse. And everyone was right. The truth was more painful than I imagined. But the wife's attachment to me never disappeared. During all this time, she didn't become distant as often happens in such cases, which I read about. The intimate life changed, but not to the extent that I noticed any alarming signs. In any case, she admitted that she fell in love with him and wanted to live with him. He was older, divorced, alone, and promised her expensive things, trips, and all that he could pamper her with. She began to fantasize about escaping from family responsibilities and claimed that the thrill of the relationship with him was too great to resist. She talked about how bored she was with the daily family life. She was incredibly frank, very emotional, and seemed honest. In the middle of her story, I couldn't take it anymore and cried. It was so painful to hear. As expected, of course. As soon as she finished her confession, she said how much she loved me and always had, and that she was ready to do anything to save the marriage. Many of you predicted that this would happen, but all this was so insincere as if she had rehearsed it beforehand. I know this woman more than half my life and can immediately tell when she is lying. Maybe I'm wrong, but probably this no longer matters. This time I held up better than last week, but still got angry and said some not so nice things, including that her lover met with many women, and she was just one of many that he was ready to throw away. This apparently hurt her. A million thoughts raced through my head. All those remarks I could have thrown at her, or the things I could have said to hurt her in return, hundreds of possible responses that I couldn't remember in that emotional moment. But to forget to ask this question, I could not. If the lover was still alive and she had to choose between him and me, who would she choose? She hesitated and mumbled that it wasn't fair. I insisted, and eventually she said, of course, she would choose me. My answer was that her hesitation is the reason why I want a divorce, because she is lying again. She began to sob, and the conversation ended there. We sat in the car for some time longer. She just cried, but I was so tired that I told her we are getting divorced, and that we should behave civilly for the sake of the girls, be good parents, and be present in their lives. I also added that after all the pain she caused me, I hope she is enough of a decent person to divorce honestly and peacefully. This was the last thing I said to her. The last thing I said to her was a phrase I read somewhere on the internet. Please understand, I am not a vengeful person and didn't want to intentionally cause her pain. It just seemed like a fitting end to everything. but I really was 100% sincere in what I said and did. I leaned over, kissed her on the forehead, and said I would love her forever. Then I got out of the car and went to sleep. Of course, last night I didn't sleep, and today I won't be able to sleep either. I don't know what to do now. Her opportunity to contest the divorce is gone, so I think that's at least something good. But I haven't spoken to the lawyer yet. I am crying again, plunging into these waves of depression and anger. It was very hard to hear all this last night, and honestly, it would probably have been better if I had stayed in the dark. Of course, she could have lied and made it all up. Who knows? But it perfectly matched everything I had gathered together over the past month. That's it for now. It seems that there is simply no end to this. I have good days when I start to feel stronger, and then something happens. It seems like it's been several months, although in reality, it's only been a few days. I will try to sleep. Imagine the love of your life. The only woman you have ever loved, the only one you have ever kissed, tells you that she has been cheating on you for more than 4 years because she was bored. She didn't fall out of love, we didn't grow apart, we didn't have problems in the relationship or lack of intimacy. Nothing like that. She was just bored. I don't know if this makes the situation worse or better. Thanks for listening. 7th update. I need to gather all my willpower just to get out of bed in the morning. The house has become so quiet. The reality of the last few months of life has finally caught up with me. I feel like Andy Dufresne from the Shawshank Redemption, standing in the path of a hurricane, hoping the storm will eventually subside. I understand it's just a movie, but that's how my life feels right now. There's no joy, no hope, just a huge crater where my soul once was. I have been trying to put on a mask of steadfastness for the sake of my daughters since I learned about the infidelity. Then I went through the agonizing weeks of grief, cohabitation, and then the frank conversations. And now she's gone, and I realize I can no longer pretend to be strong. I can barely get out of bed in the morning, but I know I have to keep living for the sake of my daughters. So I still get up. I replay our last conversation in my head like a terrible movie, regretting every word, wishing I could go back and say something different, anything. The last thing I said to her was, I love you and will always love you, but I never want to see you again. I was hurt, vulnerable, just trying to be honest. Tired of talking about the same thing, of despair and apologies. And now life, like part of some terrible joke, has fulfilled my wish. Given that my daughters will have to live without a mother for the rest of their days, they seem to be doing well. My eldest continues to take care of me, makes me eat, and watches movies with me on weekends. I am very grateful to her for that. The 2 younger ones seem to be gradually returning to normal life. School, sports, and all that. This makes me happy. My mom and brother have given me tremendous support. But every day is still incredibly difficult. We all go to psychotherapy. The girls seem to like it. For me, it's not working yet. Too much guilt, too much sadness. I only go because my eldest daughter makes me. I am a Christian. I continue to read the Old Testament book of Job, trying to keep faith despite everything. But I must admit, it's not going well. My mom and brother have given me tremendous support, but every day is still incredibly difficult. We all go to psychotherapy. The girls seem to like it. For me, it's not working yet. Too much guilt, too much sadness. I only go because my eldest daughter makes me. I am a Christian. I continue to read the Old Testament book of Job, trying to keep faith despite everything. But I must admit, it's not going well. I want to scream that it's not fair 1,000 times at the top of my lungs. I thought I was a good husband and father. Thought I was doing the right thing by people. Thought I was a moral person. But now I've been given this terrible fate, and I can't get out of the pit of despair. I feel tired, feel pity for myself, and a terrible emptiness inside. Life is unfair, life is hard. I understand, but I'm not sure I have the strength to survive this storm. What do you do when you find yourself at the bottom? So I suggest you answer this question in the comments, and what do you think about this whole story? It's sad to realize that you can do everything right, everything as it should be, but in the end, you can still end up in such a terrible position. Yes, alas, that's life. But even in the darkest times, it is worth remembering that each morning is a chance to start a new day, to take a step forward, even if it's the smallest. Thanks to everyone who watched this video to the end. Also, watch our previous video, which you will see here. Subscribe to our channel to hear similar stories. And good luck to you.